A new report suggests that Israel and Hamas may have broadly agreed in principle that an exchange of Israeli hostages for Palestinian prisoners could take place during a month-long ceasefire. However, the framework plan is being held up by the differences between the two sides over how to bring a permanent end to the Gaza war. Intense mediation efforts led by Qatar, Washington and Egypt in recent weeks have focused on a phased approach to release different categories of Israeli hostages, starting with civilians and ending with soldiers, in return for a break in hostilities, the release of Palestinian prisoners and more humanitarian aid to Gaza. More than 100 hostages are still being held by Hamas in Gaza. While Israel has sought to negotiate one stage at a time, reports say Hamas is seeking a package deal that includes a permanent ceasefire before hostages are released during the initial phase itself. One offer by Israel is to end the war if Hamas removes 6 senior leaders from Gaza. Hamas has completely rejected that proposal, according to sources. White House spokesperson John Kirby has said the U.S. Middle East envoy Brett McGurk is in Cairo and would travel to the region for active discussions on ensuring the release of hostages and securing a humanitarian pause in the fighting in Gaza. Meanwhile, reports also suggest that the mood of the Israeli public seems to be shifting after more than 100 days of war in the Gaza Strip, and the catalyst is a rift over the polarizing leadership of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Some Israelis reportedly want an election right away. As the death toll amongst Israeli soldiers keeps rising and over 100 hostages still remain in Gaza, and Hamas is still standing, more Israelis are vocally pushing back against Netanyahu and his far-right government. The public is also increasingly divided over whether the military can simultaneously achieve Netanyahu's stated goals of destroying Hamas and freeing all the hostages. Opponents say the Prime Minister lacks a clear vision for how to get Israel out of Gaza. They believe political and personal motivations are clouding his decision-making. On Monday, Israel's military suffered its deadliest day in over 3 months of conflict as 24 soldiers were killed in 2 incidents, bringing the Israeli military death toll in Gaza since late October to 220. Also, there's growing anger around the world over Netanyahu's rejection of Palestinian statehood. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has said last week's clear and repeated rejection of the two-state solution at the highest levels of the Israeli government is unacceptable. This refusal and the denial of the right to statehood to the Palestinian people would indefinitely prolong a conflict that has become a major threat to global peace and security. Such an outcome would exacerbate polarization and embolden extremists everywhere. Guterres has called for the universal recognition of the right of the Palestinian people to build their own fully independent state. Netanyahu has drawn global condemnation in recent days and defied even his closest ally, the United States, which provides Israel with billions of dollars in military aid, by rejecting calls for a Palestinian state.
Yesterday was one of the hardest days since the war broke out. We lost 24 of our best sons, the heroes who fell defending the homeland. Together with the citizens of Israel, I grieve for each and every one of them. I hug the families whose world has changed forever. From here, we send a prayer for the peace of our wounded. The IDF is conducting a thorough examination of the disaster. We must learn the lessons and do everything for the peace of our soldiers. The difficult news we had received yesterday about the death of 24 of our fighters, our best sons, from all over the country, north and south, from all places, is a heavy blow. We share and express deep sorrow and heavy grief in the mourning of the families. This morning, our hearts are broken in the face of the fallen and the families, and our hearts are complete in the important task for which they fell and which remains before us to fulfill, to ensure the safety of the State of Israel, the safety of our children, and our future in this place.
Israel's military operations have spread massive destruction and killed civilians on a scale unprecedented during my time as Secretary General, including more than 150 members of our own staff, following the horrific terror attacks by Hamas on 7 October. This is heartbreaking and utterly unacceptable. The Middle East is a tinderbox. We must do all we can to prevent conflict igniting across the region. And that starts with an immediate humanitarian ceasefire to relieve the suffering in Gaza, allow humanitarian aid to reach everyone in need, and facilitate the release of hostages, which should be immediate and unconditional.